Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at the distribution of the land of Israel, Joshua chapters 13 through 21, in our continuing study of the historical books. Joshua chapters 1 through 5, we read about the issues of remembrance. They remember where God's taken. They're planning to take the land. Preparations are made. People are circumcised. They keep the Passover. And then in chapters 6 through 12 are the big action sequences in the book of Joshua where the land is actually conquered. Next we come now to chapters 13 through 21. This is the distribution of the land now that it's been captured. And then the last part of the book, the last few chapters, is going to be issues of remembrance again. So we come full circle to them living in the land. Joshua chapter 13, verse 1. Now Joshua was old and advanced in years when the Lord said to him, "You are old and advanced in years, and very much of the land remains to be possessed." Even though they had the big battles are fought, there's still work to be done. So chapter 13, verse 1, that's our introduction as the Lord speaks to Joshua. And then our attention will first go back across the river to the eastern side of the Jordan, where we have the tribes of Reuben, Gad, half a tribe of Manasseh, and they're given their inheritance. And then a special allotment, these are all special allotments. In chapter 14 we have allotments given to Caleb, and these three areas comprise our special allotments. Then we come to chapter 15. Judah is seen next, and then the sons of Joseph, Ephraim, and the portion of Manasseh that's on the west side of the Jordan, and finally the remaining 7 tribes. So those are the allotments to the 9 tribes. First special allotments, then allotments to the 9 tribes. And in chapter 20 we have directions about the cities of refuge. In chapter 21 we have special allotments to Levite. They don't get a land portion, but they do get these other areas, including the cities of refuge. And so those are special provisions. And finally we're going to have a summary statement. So that my first chapter is going to deal with things east of the Jordan. Then we're going to move to the west of the Jordan, and then we're going to be finally on both sides of the Jordan, sort of looking at everything as a whole. Chapter 13, verse 8. As we turn first to the east side of the Jordan, we refer to the half tribe of Manasseh, and then the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them beyond the Jordan to the east. Remember, they had said they had come to this side of the Jordan, and they had said, "This looks like good land. Yes, there's a promised land to the west of the Jordan, but we'll just take this. We'll be satisfied with this." And they were given permission to take those portions, and now they're going to receive them. In the case of Caleb, chapter 14, verse 6, then the sons of Judah drew near to Joshua in Gilgal, and one of the sons of Judah is Caleb. Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know the words which the Lord spoke to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea." Remember that Caleb and Joshua, they had been the two who would come back with a positive report. They said, "Yes, the land is big, but God is bigger. We can go and take the land." And the other 10 spies had said, "No, it's too big. We can't trust God." And the people had followed the 10 spies instead of Joshua and Caleb. Well, Caleb now, he says, "Remember that, but now behold, the Lord has let me live." Even though all of the other spies, in fact, the entirety of the other tribes have now passed away, but Caleb has survived. Just as he spoke these 45 years from the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses when Israel walked in the wilderness, and now behold, I'm 85 years old today. I am still as strong today as I was in the day Moses sent me. 40 years later, he says, I'm still as strong as I used to be. You know, I can't say those words. Of course, I'm not 85, but I'm in my 60s, and I can't say I'm as strong as I used to be 40 or even 20 years ago. But Caleb says, as my strength was then, so my strength is now for war and for going out and coming in. In other words, whatever's needed, I'm there. I'm ready for it. Verse 12, "Now then," he says, "give me this hill country about which the Lord spoke on that day. For you've heard on that day that the Anakim were there." Remember those big guys? They were there with great fortified cities. They were big people. They had big cities, big walls. And Caleb says, "Perhaps the Lord will be with me, and I will drive them out as the Lord has spoken. Notice he doesn't presume on the grace and mercy and strength of God, but he says, it's there, and I'm willing, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to trust in God, and we'll see what God does. Verse 13, so Joshua blessed him and gave him Hebron, gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, for an inheritance. And so Hebron becomes, and it will become, a very important city. Back then, it's still an important city, because that's the city where Abraham and Sarah and Jacob, that's the place of their burial. Chapter 15, verse 13, now he gave to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, a portion among the sons of Judah, according to the command of the Lord to Joshua, namely Kiriath Arba, Arba being the father of Anak, that is Hebron. So this was the other name for Hebron, the village of Arba. Kiriath just means village of Arba, and then we're told who Arba was, father of Anak, and he gets this inheritance. Verse 14, Caleb drove out from there the three sons of Anak, and then we're told what their names were, Shishai and Ahiman and Talmai, the children of Anak. Then he went up from there against the inhabitants of Debir. Now the name of Debir formerly was Kiriath Sefer. It's an interesting name. Kiriath, remember, is the word for village. Sefer is the word for book, village of the book. And it's interesting that its name becomes Debir, which just means the place of speaking, village of the book or village of writing. And I just find the names are interesting. Verse 16, and Caleb said, the one who attacks Kiriath Sefer, the village of the book or village of writing, and captures it, I will give him Achsah, my daughter, as a wife. And Othniel, son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, captured it, so he gave him Achsah, his daughter, as a wife. And so he rewards this sort of his second-hand man, his brother, who becomes family, but now even closer family. Verse 18, it came about that when she came to him, and here's Achsah, she's going to make a request of daddy. She persuaded him to ask her father for a field. So she alighted from the donkey, and Caleb said to her, what do you want? And she said, give me a blessing. Since you have given me the land of the Negev, that's the land of the south. We usually take Negev and translate it as desert, because you go south of Hebron and it's very dry there. She says, also give me springs of water. Give me water to go with the land. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. And I just think this is a delightful picture of a daughter. And, daddies find it hard sometimes to say no to daughters, especially beloved daughters. I have one of those too. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. Verse 20, this is the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Judah according to their families. And so Judah receives its inheritance in that southern part of Canaan. Verse 63, now as for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the sons of Judah could not drive them out. So the Jebusites live with the sons of Judah at Jerusalem until this day. Now, notice what's being said there. The Jebusites continue in Jerusalem until this day. What day is that? Until the day that this is being written. And we're going to see the Jebusites continue in Jerusalem all the way up until 1 Samuel chapter 5. That's when David is going to capture the city. And then he's going to make it a Jewish city. But for the time being, it is going to remain a Canaanite city, a city that still is run by the Jebusites. Chapter 17, verse 14, now we move to the sons of Joseph, and the sons of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, why have you given me only one lot and one portion for inheritance? After all, there's 12 tribes, 12 sons, and they're complaining now, the sons of Joseph. Well, there's one of us, but really we're two tribes, since I am a numerous people whom the Lord has thus far blessed. Remember how Joseph there's a sense in which he receives a double portion. And so the sons of Joseph, Ephraim, the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, are asking for a double portion as well. Verse 15, Joshua said to them, if you are a numerous people, then go up to the forest and clear a space for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. If you don't like the land you have, go get some more. There it is. All you have to do is go take it. Of course, there's other people already there, other Canaanites there. Verse 16, the sons of Joseph said, well, the hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who live in the valley land have chariots of iron, both those who are in Bethshean and its towns, and those who are in the valley of Jezreel. So notice they have two complaints. First of all, the land still, even with the land, is not enough. Besides, and here's the real problem, those guys are big and they're mean, and they have chariots of iron. They have the latest weaponry out there, the latest in technology, and they've got these big towns like Bethshean and other towns that are in the valley of Jezreel. For example, Megiddo was in the valley of Jezreel, and they say those are too big for us. How different from what Caleb had said. Remember, Caleb had said, hey, there's big people over there. Good, let's go get them. And maybe the Lord will give them to us. I don't see that action, or I don't see that language upon the lips of the sons of Joseph. Well, verse 17, Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, you are a numerous people and have great power. I mean, after all, there's a lot of you. You shall not have one lot only, but the hill country shall be yours. For though it's a forest, you shall clear it. The land's there, you have to go out and take it. And to its furthest borders it will be yours, for you shall drive out the Canaanites, even though they have chariots of iron, and though they're strong. That's not supposed to stop you. That's a challenge, yes, but go take the land. So, sons of Joseph, their first complaint, the land is too small. And the answer is, well, go clear the forest, and you'll make the land bigger from the hill country. Complaint number 2, there is still not enough land, and besides, the Canaanites are there, and they're big, and they're mean, and they're nasty, and they have iron chariots. And the answer is, well, there's a lot of you. You're a numerous and powerful people. Use your numbers, drive out the Canaanites. And so we have next, and we're not going to go through each one of those, all of the different tribes, Asher, Naphtali, Zebulun, and Issachar. Manasseh we already mentioned, but you see Manasseh's on both sides of the Jordan, going from north to south. Ephraim. Dan gets this little tiny portion very close to the land of the Philistines, and that's going to be an issue in the book of Judges. Benjamin, also a very small tribe, and then Judah, and way to the south is Simeon. Now, we have a contrast there as we're looking at the sons of Joseph. And then we already read about Caleb. He was an old man. The sons of Joseph, remember, they said, we're the most numerous groups. You know, we're 2 tribes, and there's a whole lot of us. In Caleb's case, he'd been zealous for the promise of God. They had been complaining, oh, our portion is it's much too small. In Caleb's case, he says, perhaps the Lord will be with me, and I will drive them out as the Lord has spoken. He's trusting in the Lord. In chapter 17, verse 16, they had been saying, the hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who live in the land have chariots of iron, complaining. These 2 portions are in contrast one with the other. We get to chapter 18, verse 1. Then the whole congregation of the sons of Israel assembled themselves at Shiloh. Shiloh means peace, location here, and set up the tent of meeting there, and the land was subdued before them. Now that doesn't mean everything's finished, but it means they have a measure of stability now, and they set up the tabernacle, but that tent of meeting is going to be permanently located, a little bit like mobile homes. And then you find this mobile home park where there's a mobile home, but it's in a park, and they're all parked, and that means they don't go anywhere. So it's mobile homes that don't travel. And the tabernacle, which had been a portable tent, now is going to be permanently located for hundreds of years here at a place called Shiloh. Verse 2, there remained among the sons of Israel 7 tribes who had not divided their inheritance. And so, verse 3, so Joshua said to the sons of Israel, how long will you put off entering to take possession of the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? There's a land. Go get it. Verse 4, provide for yourselves 3 men from each tribe. Remember how originally one representative from each tribe had been sent out as a spy? This time, 3 men from each tribe, that I may send them, and they may arise and walk through the land and write a description of it according to their inheritance, and then they shall return to me. These are going to be surveyors. Now, the way we would do that today, we would send them out. We'd say, draw a map. What you have pictured here is actually an example of a very, very, very early map. It's the earliest one that I know of that we've ever found. It's actually supposed to be a map of Mesopotamia. You say, well, that doesn't look much like Mesopotamia. We'll see those two vertical lines. Scholars think that represents the rivers, Tigris and Euphrates. But you couldn't do much land measurement from that map. And so instead, we're going to come back with a thoroughgoing description of the land. Verse 5, they shall divide it into 7 portions. Judah shall stay in its territory in the south, and the house of Joseph, that is Ephraim and Manasseh, will stay in their territory in the north, and then the other tribes are to get their portions in and around and through those portions. So we had Caleb in chapter 14, and then we had Judah in chapter 15, and the sons of Joseph, Joseph's tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, in chapter 16 and 17. Now we have the other tribes mentioned in verses 18 and 19. And now we come full circle. We started with Caleb, and now we come to Joshua and his portion, the latter part of chapter 19. So chapter 19, verse 49, and when they finished apportioning the land for inheritance by its borders, the sons of Israel gave an inheritance in their midst to Joshua, the son of Nun. In accordance with the command of the Lord, they gave him the city for which he asked, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim. After all, he's from Ephraim, and so he built the city and settled in it, and that becomes his inheritance. Verse 51, these are the inheritances which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the households of the tribe of the sons of Israel distributed by lot in Shiloh before the Lord at the doorway of the tent of meeting. So they finished dividing the land, and the land now is completely divided. Next, we read about the cities of refuge. Now, we talked about the cities of refuge on the east side of the Jordan way back in the book of Numbers. But now that they've crossed the Jordan and entered into the Promised Land proper, now we have these other cities of refuge on the west side of the Jordan, Kadesh and Shechem and Hebron, cities for the most part that we've already mentioned, but now they're cities of refuge, which if you kill a man and it's not determined, gee, was it intentional murder, was it an accident, until it could be judged, that's going to be cities to which you can run until your case is adjudicated, so that vengeance is not taken against you. Verse 9, these were the apportioned cities for all the sons of Israel, and for the stranger who sojourns among them, that whoever kills any person unintentionally, maybe it's an accident, may flee there, and not by the hand of the avenger of blood, until he stands before the congregation, and then they will determine the merits of the case. Chapter 21, verse 1, then the heads of the households of the Levites approached Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the households of the tribes of the sons of Israel, and they spoke to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, saying, the Lord commanded through Moses to give us cities to live in with their pasture lands for our cattle. These are going to be the Levites now. They're going to get inheritance, but they don't get a land inheritance. Instead, they're going to get certain cities. And so these Levites come, and they ask for their inheritance. Verse 3, so the sons of Israel gave the Levites from their inheritance these cities with their pasture lands. So it's the cities, but it's also the lands right around the cities, according to the command of the Lord. And so they're receiving their inheritance. Verse 41, all the cities of the Levites in the midst of the possession of the sons of Israel were 48 cities with their pasture lands. And the Levites now receive these 48 cities, yes, the cities of refuge, but also these other cities, where they are allowed to be dispersed all throughout all 12 tribes, so that the Levites are to be a regular influence among all the people. Verse 43, so the Lord gave Israel all the land which he had sworn to give their fathers, and they possessed it and lived in it, and the Lord gave them rest. That's the key word, the word rest. On every side, according to all that he had sworn to their fathers, and no one of all their enemies stood before them. The Lord gave all their enemies into their hand. Verse 45, not one of the good promises which the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed. All came to pass. God had promised, and now we see that God had delivered upon his promises. He still does that. Yes, even today, he still delivers on his promises.